Inaccurate paint apps to the movie? Fixed. Now I want other paint variants. What's going on, everybody? Republic Cinema here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the new Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beasts Double Punch. Now, if you remember from last year, Hasbro did make an official Rise of the Beasts SCORPONOK, but when in any time in the movie was SCORPONOK purple? I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, but what I do remember seeing in the movie is a bunch of red SCORPONOKs. But anyways, it's 2025, and Hasbro made the accurate version, just named him something different, which there was some concept art indicating that Double Punch was supposed to be blue. So why exactly did he come out red into figure form? Well, the designer of this figure did state that the names for the different paint variations of the SCORPONOKs in the concept art did get a little mixed up, but that's a whole nother story. Before we take a look at this figure, let's take a quick look at the packaging. To start with the front, you get this proper artwork of what the SCORPONOKs were supposed to look like in Rise of the Beasts. The rest of the front of the packaging is all words, names, and logos. On the top is that beautiful Transformers Rise of the Beasts logo, and on the top is nothing but red and words. On the left side of the packaging is Double Punch's face, and on the right side is more than just Double Punch's face. But then you turn to the back and you get a little more info of what you get inside the packaging. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up with the packaging. Now back to the figure. So starting off, the sculpting is basically the same thing. Obviously the red is different, but the shading of gray is a little more grayish than the bluish gray from SCORPONOK. However, the paint for the eyes, this part right here, and the silver on the legs are literally the same thing. Back to the yellow paint, it kind of sucks. It just made the rest of the paint seem off. Although, I'm not sure if it was worse on Double Punch or SCORPONOK. So for the alt mode kibble management, well, the backpack is basically just the scorpion legs folded in, but they do stay in there fairly well. I'm not a big fan of the claw pieces blocking the full shoulder movement, and I guess the legs look a little silly. Same thing with the hands, but other than that, there's not much else I have to say for the kibble. Now for the QC of this figure, the joints on the arms are all right. It's the joints on the legs that get a little funky. That's because if you straighten the leg, of course it tabs in onto something. I'm not sure why it needed that in the first place. It's not like it helps during the transformation. Oh, and for at least my copy, the left foot pops off a little too easily. Another thing I find weird about this figure is when you push the neck up to form his head position when in alt mode. Nothing seems to tab in, but when you just push him down to position him in his robot mode form, he does in fact tab in onto something. Again, that's just a minor complaint I have with this figure. Now to move on to accessories, which this tail is the only thing he comes with. But if you do this, and this, and this, he is now equipped with what appears to be a tail whip. It barely moves out. I guess the only other thing you could do with the accessory whilst this figure is in his robot mode is to just plug it over there and then have it store on the back, which basically just adds up to the mass of the backpack kibble, but hey, at least the tail stays in there better than it does in his arm. Other than that, that's pretty much it for accessories. Now moving on to articulation, starting off ball joint at the head, which can allow the head to look up and down. Since he does also tab it onto this neck piece, it does allow for an extended forward and backwards movement. He also can do a swivel ball joint at the shoulder, which allows a full rotation at the arm, and for the shoulder to move out, bicep swivel, double bend at the elbow, ball joint at the wrist, which allows the wrist to move up and down, and swivel, waist swivel, legs can spread, leg can move forward and move backwards, thigh swivel, bend at the knee, ball joint at the front of the foot, which can allow the foot to move up and down, rock from side to side, and swivel. And yeah, that's pretty much it for articulation. Now let's move on to size comparison. To start off, here he is next to his Wavemate Hatchet, and then here he is next to SCORPONOK, Nightbird, Freezer, Novocaine, Battletrap, Bayway Nemesis Prime, Scourge, and then for some Autobots and Maximals, here he is next to RC, Noah, Bumblebee, Airazor, Cheater, Rhinox. Here he is next to the buzzworthy release of the Rise of the Beasts Optimus Prime, Optimus Primal, and lastly, here he is next to Bayverse SCORPONOK. But one more thing, here he is next to the rest of the Terracons and Predacons. I also put Nemesis Prime here because Why not? Would have been nice to get the original version that can actually be sold in the US. I believe these are all the figures we have so far of the Terracons and Predacons that appeared in Rise of the Beasts. Of course, we're still missing those different Terracon drones that were roughly this size. I believe there were 3 different versions of them. I guess we're also missing some other paint variants for the Predacons, such as a green and blue repaint of Scorponok or Double Punch, because in the concept art Scorponok was supposed to be blue, and no, this doesn't count, this is purple. But anyways, there was a green paint variant of the Predacon Scorpions. I believe his name was Sandstorm. I could be wrong. Aside from that, the only 3 other concept art characters we're missing on the bad guy side for Rise of the Beasts are Bloodhound, Rampage, and Transit. All of these characters I mentioned were either obscure or never even were in the movie, but either way it would still be great to see them in figure form. But anyways, out of all of the Terracons that we have in figure form as of January 2025, leave a comment down below which one is your favorite. And now I think it's time we move on to transformation, which is pretty straightforward. To start off, all you need to do is just fold in the arms. Just make sure everything closes in well. After that, move the head all the way up, open up the waist, move this out, untab the shoulders over here and move them all the way out. Same thing for the other arm. And then before shifting this whole assembly inwards, let's do something real quick. That being to open out the front of the leg and then rotate it and then close it in. Same thing for the other leg. And then after that, you can safely push all of this in and then make sure that this tab pegs in onto that slot. Same thing with the other tab and slot. And then close this in, straighten the back legs and the arms. Because then after that, the last thing you want to do is open these arms out. Just make sure you straighten that. Bring this whole assembly down and then move these 2 arms forward. Same thing for the other set. After that, you come back to the tail and then tab it onto the back. And there you have Double Punch in his alt mode. Although there's one thing I would like to point out, and it's that you could actually transform this whole thing with the tail still being intact on the back over here. Although, in my opinion, it's better to transform the whole toy without the tail tapped in. Otherwise, it might annoy you. Have I tried it out myself? No. Anyways, the painting and sculpting on this is pretty good. Again, much like the alt mode for Scorponok, it's basically the same thing, just with a different paint. But overall, when it comes to either the robot mode and the alt mode, I think the alt mode is just where it shines. They did a really good job with the Scorpion mode. If there's one complaint I had with this, it's that his arms look a little goofy, and the same thing with the back feet. Other than that, he's alright. So for weapon storage, we've already pointed it out. But now for articulation, ball joint at the head, which is connected to an extended neck with a hinge joint, triple hinges for the arms, as well as there being a ball joint at the very end, and a ball joint for the front leg, as well as a goofy hinge joint which is primarily used for the transformation. Same thing for the other one. Ball joint at the hind leg, ball joint at the back foot, and then for the tail, there's a hinge joint over here, a hinge joint over here, and a hinge joint over here. And yeah, that's pretty much as far as articulation can go for the alt mode for Double Punch. Now moving on to a small size comparison, nothing too fancy. Here he is next to Nightbird, and again here he is next to Scorponok, to which the both of them look pretty good together. And if you notice, the paint pattern with the purple and the red for Double Punch and Scorponok is somewhat the same, only the paint pattern on the tail is a little different. But anyways, leave a comment down below which one you prefer, Scorponok or Double Punch. Personally, I'm gonna go with Double Punch due to the paint accuracy. Shame on you, Scorponok. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that's all I had to say for the Studio Series Double Punch. Overall, he's okay. He's alright. The only reason I would pick this figure up is either if you don't have Scorponok, or you just want to add this figure to your collection, since there's not too many Rise of the Beasts bad guys made it to Studio Series. If you are planning on picking him up, I believe he is available over at Amazon, and I think at the retail stores too. I'm not sure. I haven't checked myself, but let me know down in the comments if you spotted this guy at either Target, Walmart, or GameStop. Since he's more of a side character made into a figure, he's not going to be hard to track down. Now, in the future, maybe next year or the year after, it would still be great to see different paint variations of these figures, as previously mentioned. You know, that blue and green repaint wouldn't hurt. The green one especially, since they have made a green version of Scorponok in mainline or kiddish figure form. The blue one I'm not sure how they would make into a figure. Perhaps a concept Scorponok? Either way, I still think we need those figures, whether they get released individually or in a multi-pack. It would still be great to get those to add a color variety for your Scorpion army. Even if it doesn't happen, then oh well. But for now, what did you think of this figure? Do you like him? Are you going to pick him up? Do you not like him? Are you not going to pick him up? And if you like what you saw in this video, be sure to slam that like button, share this with your friends as well, turn on post notifications so that way you don't miss another upload. Let me know how I did in this review video. And most importantly, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. Teo!